Hello and welcome to my channel where I talk about business all the time. And sometimes, as you know, I like to bring guest speakers because that's a way of passing on and sharing information with you. And, uh, and today I have a special guest with me, Danica. Welcome, Danica.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Danica, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and, and go for it?
Absolutely. Do you have a whole day? Or do you want
No. I know with you, I need to have about 24 hours.
I know, right?
Briefly, tell us a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's just simplify it. As Dario mentioned, I'm Danica Smith Josiah. Smith Josiah meaning then that I have acquired an additional name. So I'm married. I have two boys. And I am a global entrepreneur leader in every sense of the word. I have a passion for hospitality. My background has been in that. I have an undergraduate degree from Florida International University and a master's degree from Florida Atlantic University. So typically that's kind of where I start, and I've built from that over 20 years of hospitality leadership. As you see in the background, that's an emblem for Scarlet Hotel Group. So I oversee their corporate training, and I started with them as a general manager in Sarasota, Florida. So I love the warmth. If you hear my accent, I am from Jamaica. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, great. It's wonderful to have you on. So in your business, you are managing, and when you were managing, what was your secret to hire like the right people? What were certain things that you were looking for in candidates?
Right. Well, honesty, I didn't start by hiring great people. You know, before it was hiring people because we needed to fill a position. And I quickly realized that we can't hire to fill a position. We have to hire for culture, right? We have to hire to make sure that they are fulfilling the responsibilities of which is beyond a job description. So I looked for people who had passion over things that they would have on their resume. A lot of that, yes, was critical based on the position, but the core of it all was about hiring based on what they knew within their heart to execute. Some things you can't train. And I really wanted to make sure that those would be longevity instead of just hiring to get somebody in there that would just want a paycheck, right? Because again, in my line of business in the hospitality industry, it's a thankless job many times. You have to love what you do. So I looked for people with that, some of the core values of service.
Okay, talking about service, what is your take about customer service, especially in the hospitality industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I went back to preface to say that, you know, many times it is a thankless job, but it's a job that you do because you love people. You have to be a people person. I was listening just a few days ago to one of my longtime colleagues in the hospitality industry, and he oversees a lot of the ISG portfolio. And he was saying, you know, you either have it or you don't. And if you are not in the people business, it doesn't make sense to even give it a shot, right? Because there are going to be times when you have guests who, again, they're going to unleash on you, but it's not based on the fact that they don't like you, but it's a lot of baggage that might be coming with them, right? They came off a long flight, and you can't take things personally. And again, in this kind of business, you just have to want to serve to the best of your ability. And it's not just serving to get the guests in and out, but creating a wow factor, an experience, rather than them being there for a night at a hotel and, you know, having their heads on a bed. It's beyond that. It's what kind of an experience can you create for your guests to wow them to want to come back? Because in the truth of the matter is, in this hospitality field, we have so many thousands of hotels that guests can choose from. And most properties, their value system or their product is very similar to another, right? They serve breakfast, they have a bed. What is it that sets them apart? The people. Bottom line.
Okay, and so can hospitality be transferred to different industry in terms of customer service?
And that's, again, when we talk about loyalty, right? I mean, I'm a very podcast person. So I love to listen to podcasts and all the likes. And I was listening to someone that served in the Navy as an admiral. And he talked about that as well, where, again, it was so transferable because, again, in terms of serving, he gave the analogy of, there was a colleague of his who had not seen his wife for a year. They were on the same naval base. And he was like, what can I do, as critical as this might be, where we need to be at this naval base? How can I still allow this team member, right? We're talking, again, it's not a housekeeper. This is somebody that's in the line of fire, so to speak. But how can I still allow this person to feel valued as a team member? And what he did was to fly that person to see his wife, just to have lunch for that day, because he had not seen them for the whole year. And the ripple effect of that was he could ask that particular team member to be able to do anything, again, because he showed that person that they were not just a body, right? That he truly cared about them. And again, sometimes we think of customer service from an external side. Customer service is also from an internal side of things, right? So again, that's a very transferable.
So
it's very transferable.
What would you tell someone, let's say, a lot of people are trying to go into business and they think that customers are only those out from outside. And as you said, those employees, what advice will you give to someone in terms of employees and customer service?
Yeah, human capital, right? I mean, that's the foundation of any business. Many times we want to make money and think of that pie in the sky. If we just sell this room, then we will make this profit. If we just sell this widget, we will make this profit. But where does it start? If you don't have the people, yes, we're talking about the age of robots and things happening, but regardless, behind it all are people. Bottom line. So if we don't have the people in the right places, and that those that feel valued and valuable, then there's absolutely no way that we can be successful in whatever business sector that we're in. Bottom line.
Oh, great, great. I was talking to an employee. I like to talk to managers and employees because sometimes employees give me more information than managers, believe it or not. And it's a restaurant, and the restaurant just opened in January, and it is going down because of lack of that internal culture and employees. Wow, that is so wonderful. Now, talking about management for a second, what are some of those skills that managers need to have regardless of industry?
We talk about soft skills, right? Yes, again, you have those other skills that come from your years of training, formal training in universities or wherever else. But those soft skills are very, very, very critical as well, right? Developing new leaders is like a big focal point, right? Because again, some of the times we hire based on a resume. But are you approachable? Do you have those interpersonal qualities that would get you through the tough times with your team, right? Are you approachable? Or are you one where you lead with an iron fist? It's my way or no way, right? So you have to have the ability to basically be empathetic, in the tough times, especially now. I know we don't want to bring up the C word, COVID, right? But the biggest thing is in this time, we have had so many changes um, on a personal front, and on a professional front. You know, I personally have had to unfortunately furlough quite a bit of my team when COVID just started, and thinking about their families and how us overall was a big deal, you know. So I had to reassess and say, I'm sorry, my battery seems to be dying. I want to make sure that I don't lose you here. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
But I want to, we have to have that empathetic spirit, you know, in terms of if a person says, you know what, Danica, today I don't have a babysitter. What am I going to do? Am I going to say, well, again, the biggest thing before all of this was, well, you have to just be at work and show up to work. Now it's okay, well, can you come in for this part of the day instead of the whole day? Or does it mean that you have to bring your kids and have them be in a certain safe environment while you can still be productive? So you have to be a flexible leader. You know, you have to be interpersonal. You have to meet them where they are. But with that said, you also have to be assertive, because now is the time where you have to think outside the box and make decisions that are going to impact the hospitality industry or whatever field that you're in a critical way, right? Drive them forward or dial them back, right? So right now, it's first movers advantage. So you have to be able to think outside the box, do your research, know one thing more than your team to help drive them forward. And you have to be a continuous learner yourself.
Wow, yes. Okay, so some managers believe that once they graduated, they don't have to learn anything else at all. And especially now with these, like those stimulus packages that are being passed, if you are a manager, you need to know about different things like marketing, accounting, right?
Absolutely.
And so some accountants, unfortunately, are not up to date. What advice would you give to someone in a different field like that? You mentioned about developing. The question is, what is the importance of personal development?
Yeah, again, you know, the best leaders lead themselves. And that's the hardest thing to do, right? You get complacent, you feel like, okay, I've plateaued. And again, for instance, my position here came about because being a general manager for the length of time that I have been a general manager, I said, what more is it that I could do to offer the gifts that I know that I have and help, right, in a collective way? A position was not there in my particular company to do that. So what I did, I started to create what my passion is, which is training and development. And once I started to do that, I had to make sure that I learned the ins and outs of training and development. Yes, I have the raw talent, but in executing it so it can be effective throughout the organization, I had to also learn, and I continue to learn, what avenues will serve best my team and the bigger company as a whole. When I started to create that, I found content along the way and started to learn. And I'm like, oh, if I know this and I find this as valuable, how much more could the rest of the team find that as valuable? So I started to do a focus group and kind of figured out, hey, what are your pain points? What are the things that you would have wanted to know if you were a leader 10 years ago that you know now? You know, and there's a lot of things that were discovered. Who on your team do you find to be the weakest link, and why are they the weakest link? Okay, so what can we build from that? And it took me now to start developing more in research, and all of that now will serve my company on a bigger scale, because we are all now beating to the same drum, right? And when we know that we're all cohesive, what happens with a cohesive team? They move forward much quicker than a disconnected team. So what I would encourage individuals who might be in a leadership role and they may have just become a leader or they have been a leader for 20 odd years and say, okay, this is where I'm going to retire. Do not rest on being okay in being successful now, because today's success is not tomorrow's success. You have to continue to evolve.
Great. Wow. So in management, it's all about being able to interpret data, but also being able to research and being able to contribute to develop others, right?
That's exactly true.
Okay, because even this week, I've been contributing to there is a study being conducted right now. It is about servant leadership. There are different styles, autocratic, my way or your way, and transformational, but servant, which is basically is about team building and helping people, guiding people through. And I remember even this week I've been contributing to that. And those people, they have been in the field for many, many years. And you are right. It's all about continuing to learn. Okay, so the question is this: how do you how how can someone manage a person or a team that is a little bit reluctant to change?
That's a great question, and you don't manage at that point, right? You lead. So what you do is you have to, one, be fully transparent. You cannot pretend that you don't see the elephant in the room. So we need to clear that first. So if there's conflict that's there, right, we need to be able to expose that. And that's, again, a very, very keen skill that needs to be developed, because, again, it's not just something that, all right, you go in a room and you just start talking and you say, all right, this is what we're going to do. And why are you not doing this? Obviously, if there's conflict, there is a reason behind it. So we need to uncover why that is, right? We need to then set clear expectations, and we need to also allow for the what's in it for me to play out, right? So that the buy-in can then happen. And take it in bite-sized pieces. Once you determine that, it'll be critical for you not to just evaluate each person with one broad brush, so to speak, but you have to then understand where each person's strength lies in your achievement of a change that might be happening or that might be needed to happen. So when there's conflict, again, transparency is key. You have to make sure that you get rid of that elephant in the room by being transparent and asking each person's opinion as to why that might be the case. And then work through the problem by looking at viable solutions in bite-sized pieces.
Great. How about empowerment, employee empowerment, from the leader all the way down to managers, employees? What are your thoughts about that?
That's a term that's thrown around so much without truly knowing what empowerment means, right? Empowerment doesn't mean that you say, all right, run it the way that you feel like. If you don't have proper tools in place, how am I going to run it the way that I feel like? Right? So many times managers, and not leaders, but managers, they don't want to be that chief reminding officer, right? Because in truth and in fact, that's who we are. We are really reminding officers. That means that we champion along the way and we look to change behaviors where it's not optimal. So, in truth and in fact, in order to empower a person, you have to first equip the person. So you have to make sure you do your due diligence as a leader to work through everything from point A to point Z, work through the questions that they might have along the way, have them ask questions, role play if necessary, and then you empower. Then you say, if you screw up, it's not really screwing up, actually. It's actually allowing you to be a better version of yourself, to learn from that, right? But I am here as your cheerleader. to cheer you on if you do make a mistake, or you need to bounce an idea off of me, or something comes up that we didn't go through. But it's also, once they get the hang of that, they feel more valued when they are empowered, right, to make decisions. And remember, as a leader, you cannot say that you empower someone and then micromanage them either, right? We have that. Oh yeah, do it. But then why did you do it that way? Right?
Yes.
That's not truly empowering either. So empowerment can serve its purpose, and it actually does help for your team to feel valued in terms of their input and their execution of things. But we just have to make sure that when we do empower, we really mean we're empowering and we're not just pawning off things, right? We have to make sure that we are also coaching along the way when we empower, and we have to also make sure we're not micromanaging.
Oh, great. I was teaching a hospitality class one time. I believe it was a tourism. And I was asking students like, so would you like to be teaching one day? They were saying, no, no, no. I was like, okay, so you don't want to be general managers. You don't want to be leaders. You don't want to, because, so basically what you are saying is if you are managing even a department, you need to understand that it is more than managing. It's about coaching and leading and innovating and supporting, right?
That's exactly right.
Oh, okay, great. How about in terms of globalization, should a leader today know about globalization and different culture? If so, why?
Oh, absolutely. Again, we're a melting pot of sorts, um, because everyone has a different way as to how, even with the whole leadership thing and managing and where you went to school and how, you were cultured, all of that does have an impact on the sustainability of any culture intrinsically, right? So internally, when you look at how a group of people perform, it's easy for them if everyone has the same mindset, right? But in truth and in fact, differences of opinions actually help an organization many times. We're not talking about, again, where you asked me just now about conflict, we're talking about differences of opinion, because what it does is to spur conversations, and it also allows for creativity and innovation to take place, right? Because if everyone was doing everything the same way all the time, then where would that the best practices come in, or the first movers advantage come in, right? But we have to also make sure that that's where you have to, if you have an organization that this hasn't been done yet in, diversity and inclusion training is very, very important, because that creates respect. Even though we might not agree on everything, we need to respect each other, right? And in the bigger global market space, that's very, very important, because again, if you're working for a brand that might be local, it has a bigger ripple effect on the global perspective and the global arena, right? And again, many times, like I've worked for all of the big brands within the hospitality industry. And yes, we've had our own sets of training, but the bigger thing is, again, it affects the head, which is that global brand, all the way down. And it could have negative ramifications if we do not culturalize our people to respect cultural differences, religion, race, whatever that might include, in order for us to be successful as a group.
Okay, so the management as a whole is way more than someone might think, right?
Absolutely.
Is management a science, in your opinion?
That's a great question. I think it's more of an art. And the reason why I say I think it's more of an art is because, like I said, it's not black or white, right? You learn the foundations many times again by formal education. However, the true test comes in when you're placed on the job. So again, with the cultural differences, with the diversity, with the products that you might be selling and who your target audience is, if it's a service that you're providing, all of that, you don't have a rule book for that, so to speak, and you have to evolve and change according to who your audience is and who you're serving.
Okay, so it is, okay, great. It's all about knowing. A quick question, how about, what is that a manager, let's say a general manager or leader should know, like basically everything about the company from a technical perspective, let's say like managing different departments, controlling, accounting, and finances? What is that? Do you think people probably will try to steal from the company? What are your thoughts?
So before again, and this is all with experience, before I felt like I had to know everything. And with that, I felt as though I was learning everything without knowing some things really well, right? The truth of the matter is, if you're a general manager, you should know a little bit about everything to be able to be a general manager, as the term suggests. But in terms of you needing to know everything in its finite detail, I don't believe that you need to be as critical where that is. However, you need to make sure that those that are in place in those positions know that particular area really well, right? And then you, again, coach along the way to make sure that you have certain checks and balances in place. You talked about, stealing from the company and things like that. You need to have policies and procedures in place to make sure that you have checks and balances. But leadership is beyond knowing everything. It's more about those around you being put in the positions. We call it right seat on the bus, right? So that you can be an effective leader.
Okay, so you will say that a leader is like a primary doctor that is not a specialist in every area of medicine, but the person will be able to guide you through in different areas. So,
absolutely.
And how about, there is a term in business like cooking the books. What is that? What does it mean?
Well, when you don't have checks and balances, right? When you don't have correct policies and procedures in place, that's the foundational thing for any business, whether you're an auditor or you're in the service industry, whatever it might be, because you want to make sure that, if you have a succession planning, for instance, and then the next person that comes along, you have to make sure that you have something in place that the next person can follow through with seamlessly and in the right way, again, based on regulations and everything else that's involved in it, to make sure there's quality assurance, right?
Great. Okay, so we are getting to the end, because I know I can ask you a question. We can have an interview for 24 hours, right?
I know, right?
Question about, this is about back to customer service. So is the customer always right or just right?
They're always right. They're always right. I mean, that's there's no two ways about it. And again, before this, and we have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Again, for me, I'm in the service industry primarily. I have been in the other side of things where it wasn't service, it was physical products. But here's the thing, the customer is always right. However, sometimes the customer may not always treat you right.
Great. Okay.
And there's
go ahead.
Yeah. So from the service element perspective, my front office team is the one that typically gets the brunt of a lot of things. Again, if the customer is having a bad day, for instance, that's kind of what spills over to you, so you're beyond just like a front office agent or a general manager. Sometimes you are their therapist, you are everything else. But again, we are in the business, whatever that might be, to provide the best versions of ourselves in every single way, the best product, the best service, whatever it might be. So if the customer feels as though their perception really is their reality, regardless. And so we just have to learn from that, and grow from that, and see how best we can then wow them the next time. Try and recover. That's why that's there. Service recovery is a big thing. You're not always going to get it right, even though your intention is to get it right the first time. But how do you recover that customer if you fall short of their expectations?
Okay, so and probably one final question here. Should a business owner in any industry, should a business owner have like seek like coaching or mentoring or something like that to keep up to date?
Oh, absolutely. That is critical. And again, before I tell you, really, experience does teach wisdom. That's not a cliche. You always, I felt before that my mentor had to be a physical person, right? I had to be with them, to talk to them. But I've since learned that mentorship is beyond that, right? Somebody can be a mentor to you that you have never even met. It's based on their philosophies, the way of how they do things, their core beliefs and their core values. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a big proponent of podcasts. My travel is quite often and quite extensive. So before I used to be very big on books and all of that, but now I listen to audiobooks, I do podcasts. YouTube is a big part of it as well. But it's really, whoever you choose as a mentor, you just have to make sure that they align with what it is that you want to become and that you ascribe to be, right? It's foundational where that is concerned. It's great when, yes, we can dialogue and it's somebody that you know, but if it isn't, don't feel that you cannot be mentored, because it's a very critical component. If you stop learning, you stop growing. And you want to always continue to grow. The big saying says you can't go where you haven't grown. So it's very important for our leaders, or again, when we talk about leaders and things of that, it's beyond a title, right? And as I said along the way, make sure that you start with leading yourself. And leading yourself means becoming a better version of yourself every single day.
That's great. Wow, I will say I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining me today, and I just want to let you, if you have any final thoughts or any wisdom that you would like to share with the audience.
Well, I'm sure for having me. It's been a pleasure. As hopefully someone will glean from this, my passion definitely lies in just helping along the way, being able to provide some sort of semblance regarding my trajectory through my career. And hopefully someone will understand that it really doesn't matter where you start. It's that you start and that you learn along the way. You're going to make mistakes. And yesterday's success, you can't rely on that for tomorrow. You have to make sure that every single day you look at in bite-sized pieces, how can I make a positive difference to those that I come in contact with? It's beyond a title. It's again about integrity, and it's about making sure that you are working continuously to be the best version of yourself.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you very much, Danica. It was a pleasure having you in. And those of you watching the video, just subscribe to the channel, because this is exactly what you're going to be getting. It's like getting that practical education without having to go to a place. And this is just here because of the technology. Thank you very much, and just have a great